Call to order the occupancy tax meeting for August 19th. Need a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Matt, Ron, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Reports on revenue from county treasurer.
Good morning, everyone. Does everyone have the report that I passed out, I hope, so you can review it? Okay. Revenues were 1.15% above what we were last year at this time. However, I want to say that most of our businesses report quarterly, so we won't be seeing that big influx from the summer until the September checks start coming in. So I wouldn't get too concerned about that. The payments to the towns, I've itemized them there. The original $270,000, the $563,000 payment that was done, the final payment for 14, and we've got an October 15th payment coming up of about $390,000, which leaves a balance. Actually, it's less than $1 in there, but my program wouldn't let me go to $1. This discretionary fund, we have some new events: the New York State Family Tour and the Arlo Guthrie concert. So in that, right now, there's a balance of $22,000. Under Warren County projects, we started out with $100,000, and the Up Yonder Farm and the Village have taken out some money, so we have a balance in that of $71,000, which I think is what we talked about at the last meeting. And the designated reserve is $1 million as usual for the new arrangement. Questions?
Questions for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
We have before us a referral from the Economic Growth and Development Committee requesting $25,000 in funding from Warren County projects, which is the Warren County projects fund, for Warren County's share of traffic study of the State Route 9 corridor from the vicinity of Six Flags to just north of 149. Traffic study is being pursued and recommended by EDC based on changed circumstances and other developments since the last study. EDC will also be seeking additional funding from another source as well as the town of Queensbury. I think this is appropriate use of occupancy tax fund. We squeeze more sales tax dollars per square foot out of that corridor from tourists than any other corridor in the county. So I think it's appropriate, and we'll open it for discussion.
I'll bring it to the floor for discussion. I'll make a motion to.
Okay. Second?
No, discussion.
Discussion.
All right, I learned about this when we got it in there. I'm a little concerned about it, and I agree everything you say about sales tax, but we just did a study in 2009 on the same corridor, paid a lot of money for it. Here it is. I try to read it. It tells, I don't think there's much difference they can do with a new study for that spot to spend another $100,000. I might be wrong, but it's just they show different places where we can do the exit off 87, different corridors. We went through this in 1989. This was a good study. It told us a lot, but just like everything else, government gets delayed and nothing got done. So I don't know.
Yes, that study, which was done 6 years ago or so, a lot has happened since then. We have the McCormick property coming online. We have the new Montcalm thing, and we've had some new ideas come up about how we could improve traffic flow in there. And another thing that we've had that we didn't have before is we have the developers coming to us and saying, listen, we're willing to put some skin in this game. We're willing to give up some property. We're willing to put in some money ourselves. If you can come up with a plan that would be comprehensive and improve traffic flow. So we know that there's an open door there, and so this entity that's putting in the money that can be made public yet, said that they'll put up X amount of dollars if the town, if the municipal entities involved would put up X amount of dollars. So, if the county's willing to put in 25, the town's willing to put in 25, we can do a comprehensive study that will build on that previous study and hopefully come up with something concrete that we can say, yes, this will improve, and then we can go from there. But we need that. We need an improved study. That can work as a good base, but we need to go beyond that.
Did you read that, John, at all?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was involved with it.
I mean, there's a lot of good ideas in there, and I can't see them giving us any different,
Oh, there's a lot of new ideas
know,
that have come up.
and then I will back away, but I just, get nervous spending another 25,000. It's easy to spend this money, but.
Well, it's not a lot of money for the value that you're gonna get out of it.
We gotta do something because the, traffic on the Northway backs up at the exit right onto the Northway. It's only a matter of time before there's a fatality there.
And not only that, but that previous study looked at 149 to the southbound, Gurney Lane Road. The new study will look at 149 to Round Pond Road, and it will include that intersection. If any of you are familiar with that intersection, that's problematic as well. Eric Gilbert, from manager of Great Escape, came to me and said, what can we do? We need to do something. It's a pedestrian safety issue, it's a traffic flow issue. This study is going to include that. In other words, this study is bigger and better than the previous one.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of points too, is that, I had heard the concern about the prior traffic study, so I did raise that with Ed Bartholomew, and, for many of the reasons that Supervisor Stroud just stated, he assured me that this was something that he felt was still really needed. The other thing that's changed too, is from the county's perspective, now that we're selling the nursing home and we're looking towards development of the property, to the west of the nursing home, and we're also looking seriously at the development of the property adjacent to the Great Escape property. And we also may have some potential, even for the parcel that seems to be landlocked right now, to the north of that other parcel we have. I think a traffic study, Warren County would have a lot of concern and interest in the traffic study and be looking for certain information to come out of that as well, as far as the development of its property. And in fact, in some of the conversations I've had, as you know, one of the things we've been doing is preparing that property for sale. We've done title work, we've done a number of things, surveys and stuff to get the property ready. But some of the information has come to me recently about some potentials that weren't previously discussed in that report, have caused me to, and I will be recommending to the board, that we hold off on selling that property until we know exactly what we're gonna do as a result of this traffic study, and maybe we can actually do some good that might involve some pieces or parts of that property, but yet still leave it developable. So I think there's a lot of ideas out there, and I would certainly, strongly encourage Mr. Chairman of the committee to really consider this traffic study, because I think this may be the one that puts us over the hump and maybe finally gets some of these issues resolved.
Dennis?
I kind of agree with Gene to a certain point, but I think in this case I'm gonna defer to Supervisor Stroud. It's his town. He seems pretty adamant about it. It's not that much money. I think we should proceed with it.
There is an unnamed source of $100,000, is it?
Yes, Ed tells me that he is looking for a significant contribution from an unnamed source. He can't name them yet because it hasn't been fully committed. It's a matter of, is the town in, is, or EDC in, and the county. And if we are, then he'll be prepared to go to that source, and there would be an announcement at a later date. But the money that that other source will be putting in would be significant. I mean, far beyond what we're looking at putting in.
Jim?
Kind of the thing, if we do this study, we're gonna do a lot of improvements, presumably, where would the money come from to do all these improvements? It would be probably not a good idea not to do it, but, how much are we talking, $1 million or?
Civic Center, we're gonna get it from the Civic Center.
You know, until you know what the actual needs are, it's gonna be kinda hard, but you're right, funding will be an issue. We'll have to seek funding from New York State, we may even have to come up with some funding ourselves, and maybe the town as well, if it's that important. And I think when we come up with a final solution, it will be so important that you'll really wanna consider it, because one of the other things I think is happening, and I have to attribute this comment to Dave, because I met with him not too long ago, and I really think that if we don't address this traffic, we are gonna lose sales tax dollars up in that area. And so we're actually gonna shoot ourselves in the foot if we don't solve that traffic problem.
John?
This would actually fall under the umbrella of the AGFTC. That's your federal state agency that isn't, you know, gives the oversight for transportation in this region. So, any improvements that, you know, the facts show would help the situation would be funded, for the most part, typically by federal and state funding. The town may have to come up with some money too.
I don't wanna sound like I would be against it, Dennis. I'm just saying if we're gonna do this, we should have some idea of where the money's gonna come from, but otherwise we're just wasting $100,000.
Gene?
I'll just make one more comment. I talked to Ed Bartholomew yesterday, I guess that must have been a top secret $100,000, because he didn't say nothing to me about it. I told him I wasn't happy with it, and he didn't give me any inkling that there was more. So, I mean, if we get somebody else that's gonna spend most of the money, then I would back away from my feelings, because I just didn't feel it was fair to put bed tax money and Queensberry money into a study that we just did 6 years ago. And, you know, I looked at that, you know, they showed a different exit off 87, they showed back road behind the, malls. I mean, what more can we do unless we knock down some buildings and make it bigger? So, that's what I was worried about. But you seem to have more information than we were given, so.
Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a letter to the editor about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and it jumped right out at me. Short and sweet and to the point, guy from Bolton. Retired state traffic engineer, retired, knows what's going on. He was the acknowledged expert in all things traffic. And apparently he's involved up here now in his retirement years. And it was short and to the sweet. It said, regarding the problem up at the $1 million half mile, it will only be resolved by putting a bridge over and into another mini intersection with the Northway. It's going to be very expensive. It's going to take, his record, he saw it was going to take probably one business only. And the only way to solve that problem is with a big project. And it's going to take getting the people off 149 that want to go south on the Northway and get them where they can do that. When GE has their free day at Great Escape, and there's a GE plant, Rutland, Burlington, somewhere over there, they were backed up to Ridge Road, stopped dead, trying to get to the Great Escape. He's right. The only way to in my opinion, the only way to resolve this is with a big project. A little road in back of through Courthouse Estates isn't going to do a thing to get the people that want to get south on the Northway there. Maybe there's a way to move them all north and put them on up north. I don't know. But his letter jumped out at me as the one guy with no axe to grind, no nothing, except a huge amount of knowledge. And that was his comment. It was in the Post-Star maybe 6 weeks ago or so. Thank you.
Anybody else? Frank?
Well, if we're gonna do another study, we must come to a conclusion here, you know. If I'm not mistaken, this is the third study that I'm aware of about the same area. It's time to do what we gotta do to get it done. 6 years from now.
I think this new study will spur some action. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. You have before you the second quarter report from the coalition. Martin, you want to address this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received yesterday, which you now have, although I don't, Supervisor Stroud, I don't know that you have a copy. Under our contract with the coalition, they are to provide quarterly reports. They did so for the first quarter of 2015, and now they've done so for the second quarter of 2015. Admittedly, the second quarter report was a little bit late. I knew that it was going to be late. I conferred with the chairman about that, and it arrived yesterday. They've also, as you will see, they've submitted a revised report for the first quarter. My recommendation, and I think this actually works well, is that you have this report today. My understanding is that the coalition representatives, Mr. Chairman, will be returning to this committee for the September meeting.
Yes.
And we will have ample time, therefore, to review these reports and to ask any questions that we may want to ask. I even met with Supervisor Simpson this morning. I had the ability to give him the report ahead of time and this morning, and he's already got a couple of questions that he wants me to get to them, which I will do so. So I think that's the way this process should work. I'll be making sure that I go through this as I did the last time to make sure that these expenses match up with the contractual requirements. I did meet with Ms. Mahoney during the time when the first report came in, and I made a number of suggestions to her about how I thought the report would be better presented and how I thought that certain expenses were not qualifying expenses. So that's the reason for the revised report for the first quarter. Thank you.
So any questions on the coalition report will be asked next month at the September meeting. No old business, new business?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just to Frank Dietrich from Warren County Lodging Association. Couple of points. I do appreciate the comments about if you do the study, follow through is important, right? So preparing for what the possible downstream implications of a study would be, I think, just prudent planning. So I really want to thank the committee for having that discussion, and it sounds like the commitment to move ahead on that. The other thing I'd like to bring up, this morning, Supervisors Garrity, Strow, and Mr. Dusick were in attendance for an activity that's over at SUNY Adirondack. It's the Upstate Revitalization Initiative that the state is running. There's a lot of money sitting out there the Capital Region's contributing here on how can the Capital Region, which of course would include Warren County, gain by putting together key initiatives. These are kind of the out-of-the-box kind of ideas to move forward and gain some much-needed funding from the state to do the kind of development that so often is discussed in this room and in your main room. I think one thing I would like the county to consider, what wasn't clear to me in this discussion was what are the primary tenets or strategies that the Capital Region is going to push on. From our perspective, we've mentioned before, we believe that tourism is the #2 industry in this county. And honestly, I believe has the opportunity to be the #1 industry when we look at the demographics of the people that live in this county. Their education, their willingness to stay in this area, I believe leads them to want to stay here, and a job in tourism could help them with that outcome, raising the levels of employment in the community, and also, of course, the income for the residents in the community. The request to the committee and to the supervisors is please stay in touch with this initiative. I think the stronger a message that the county provides into the Capital Region itself can help influence an outcome with, again, when you consider the Albany City of and County, that's the 90-pound gorilla or 900-pound gorilla in the room, of course, but the Warren County, Washington County areas are key contributor on the north boundary of the Capital Region, and we have an opportunity here to get some of this funding dollars and funnel it into strategic initiatives that pivot around tourism as a broadly defined activity. Thank you.
Any other new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. John, seconded by Dennis. All in favor? Thank you.
Billy?